Hey guys, Brent Campbell again. Following up on that last video that I showed you, this is part 2. So then, why is the E60 M5 so special? It's got a clean sheet V10 inspired by BMW's winning F1 racing program, producing an insane 507 horsepower at a sky-high 8,250 RPM. With no aid from turbochargers or superchargers and a top speed of 204 miles an hour. Yeah, we all know that. I'll offer this tidbit, though I can keep going all day, as explained so eloquently by SavageGeese, and if you don't follow them on YouTube, you must, about the $400,000 Lexus LFA, a video they released recently.
I need a cup of coffee and a cigarette now, Marcus. That's about as good as you could possibly get a car to sell.
It shares all of these special race-inspired characteristics, like individual throttle bodies, which improves the responsiveness to your right foot to help deliver immediate, notably high engine revving ability, tuned air plenums, dry sump lubrication, which helps to ensure engine lubrication no matter how much you throw the car around. The list goes on. And the LFA is an engineering marvel, and I found every bit of that video fascinating. In fact, it caused me to develop a new respect for Lexus and Toyota. Thing is, much of this technology is sitting in my driveway right now in a car mere mortals can actually afford to buy and maintain. When launched in 2005, purists complained about the new car's complexity, and having gotten in there, I can confirm, and perhaps the Vanos is needlessly complicated, and it's overbuilt in all of these awesome ways. Not one, but 10 individual throttle bodies. Not one, but 2 throttle body actuators. Not one, but 4 intakes. Clever valve timing, dry sump lubrication, a special oil cooler, all of these elements, the stuff you only see in supercars typically, combined to shove a tremendous volume of air and fuel into that massive engine to make a staggering 507 horsepower. Without the aid of turbos or superchargers. They engineered everything under the hood to reliably-ish transport 4 adults at 150 plus miles an hour across Germany with all the cooling, braking, and suspension components needed to handle that capability. But truly, it's not that it's complicated, as just built to handle tremendous capacity. The best bonding experience I've had with this car by far is when one of those 2 throttle body actuators failed 1,500 miles away from my trusted mechanics. We made it to my hometown, and I hired my endlessly resourceful friend, Wes Freeland, for a couple of days to do the necessary surgery to replace both throttle body actuators with brand new ones in my dad's garage. I got to get intimate with that massive, overbuilt engine that was engineered to go all day long at insane speeds on the Autobahn, with the cooling, plumbing, airflow, and sensors to keep it all running seamlessly. And then I looked at the big 4-door body attached to it and thought it was both brilliant and a shame. There's a reason why so many call the S85 V10 the beast. It's simply massive and very, very thirsty. Which brings me to my first point. You'll very quickly need to understand if you're looking after this car. Don't leave home without a quart of oil. I faithfully use the 10W60 that BMW recommends, though many fellow owners swear by other oils that aren't as thick and therefore warm up quicker and are less likely to damage the rod bearings. I don't feel qualified to make that call, so I stubbornly rely on the BMW engineer's guidance. Yet, on a road trip with my family, as it does, it guzzled oil and I neglected to pack a spare quart. On our return trip, I got nervous that we would run out and the engine would burn up, and so we stopped at several auto parts chain stores, and none of them had the 10W60. Thankfully, we made it back in time so that I could give it a fresh quart, but that was a nail biter, as there were no BMW service centers open along the way where they keep it on hand. Oh, and that leads us here to another big point and irritation about this car. There's no dipstick, just an electronic one that works when it feels like it, and I've had to replace 2 of them They aren't cheap. Here's the trick with it. When it tells you to add a quart, add the quart and wait. It can take a while for the oil to register, sometimes days. It only seems to guzzle oil, at least in my car, when we're on a road trip. Another important point, the battery. If you don't drive it for a few days, the car's computers will drain the battery and you won't have enough juice to start the engine. I've had this happen to me 3 times, and then I got the trickle charger and I haven't had the issue since. If you don't drive it daily, keep it plugged into a trickle charger. In my analysis here, I didn't include the cost of fuel. Not in total cost, as after all, fuel is not a major cost driver of owning a car. At least in the US it isn't. But man, this thing sucks it down. It does okay-ish on the highway, like 17 miles per gallon at best, averaging 13. But it's important to note that when you're on the highway, it sucks down about a quart of oil per 1,000 miles. But fuel economy averages about 8 miles per gallon when driving around town, which is, of course, abysmal. At the same time, I've read that the Lamborghini Gallardo gets about the same fuel economy. And at least in this case, you get 4 doors and a usable back seat and trunk. Also, I feel I should make a comment about the manual gearbox. I can certainly understand how any car nut would think that a 6-speed manual paired with a 500 horsepower V10 is the stuff of fantasy. And it is. Yet I feel I should say something, as people have made comments. Heel and towing and flawless rev matching aside, I can drive a stick. I've been doing it for nearly 30 years. But something isn't quite right here. The gearbox, as I understand it, was lifted directly from the 545i and not modified, despite that these cars were powered by very different engines. Maybe I'm crazy, but 6 years and 40,000 miles later, it still feels a little off to me. And my shifts show that, no matter how deliberately or carefully I shift. Maybe it is me and I really can't drive a stick, but I don't think it's just me. This car was built for the much-loathed SMG. Specifically, the engine was built for the SMG transmission. The manual gearbox was an afterthought. They only made, was it 1,364 units? And I suspect, though I can't say for sure, as I am no expert, that it's not a perfect match for the engine. Alright, that's it for today. In the third and final video that I'm going to publish on this series next week, I'll dive into the details in the 6+ years that I've owned it, as well as the 3 years that my brother owned it, along with the costs and some of the number crunching, and takeaways from the experience so far. Be sure to watch that one, as it's going to be extensive and it's going to be detailed. As always, thank you for watching, and thanks for the comments.